Hey allies! Today we're going to share some updates and hot takes on what happened last week, including the data center moratorium that passed on Thursday. Last week started off with a meeting of the Town of Alabama Planning Board, which continues to review the site plan application from Stream US Data Centers. Members of the Planning Board asked important questions about the data center heat island effect, plans for emergency response services, plans for wastewater discharge, Stream's changing plans for generators, the criteria that they can consider as part of making a decision, and the decision-making process, among other topics. They also got an update on the status of the noise study review. TLDR, it was not done in time for the Planning Board to learn the findings. We are concerned about the answers given by Stream employees at the meeting, by GCEDC CEO Mark Massey, and by employees of the town's paid consultant, Wendell Engineering. In our assessment, there was misinformation and disinformation provided on various topics, as well as unclear responses to critical questions. For example, no one from Stream or Wendell was able to define the data center heat island effect, which is the increase in ambient temperature documented in a multi-mile radius around hyperscale data centers like the one proposed stamp. We don't believe the answers given about the status of permits and approvals for the wastewater pipeline, and we were also concerned about the vague and inconsistent answers given by Stream about their plans for diesel generators on site. We were glad to see that the Planning Board members asked so many good questions and that the Planning Board Chair, Carl Kump, stated that there is no deadline for a board decision on the site plan. In an article from the Batavian, he is quoted as saying, "I have no expectations. I want Wendell, the town, and the applicant, i.e. Stream, to supply us with all the pertinent information they have so our board members, the whole board, can review it. And I don't care how long it takes." We want to encourage the Planning Board to keep on asking questions, demanding more information, and ask for other third-party independent reviews, not by Wendell or Stream. To listen to a recording of the meeting timed by topics and to see the documents that the Planning Board was reviewing, see the link in the comments and join us at the next Planning Board meeting on June 15th at 7 p.m. at the Alabama Fire Hall. The other big news of last week, the New York State Legislature passed a one-year moratorium on new hyperscale data center construction. Allies of TSN does not take positions on specific pieces of legislation, so we can't tell you whether or not we endorse this bill. And we're still learning a lot about the final text of the bill, which changed a lot at the very end, including that it was cut back from 3 years to 1. But here's what we can tell you. First, we're very grateful to the backers of this moratorium for raising the issue of data centers to such a high profile in this state. We agree that the explosion of data centers needs to be checked, and now. We need to put a pause to give time for building out an appropriate regulatory and policy framework that just doesn't exist. Currently, we're playing whack-a-mole in many different places at the same time, trying to stop numerous terrible data center projects that all have the same problems and are backed by a lot of outside money pouring in from corporations that can't be trusted to do right by our communities. We need statewide solutions to stop the abuses of data centers before we've wrecked our environment, our electrical grid, and our quality of life in this state. Second, the push for a moratorium has been good for our efforts to stop the stamp data center. Local residents from Genesee County and our statewide allies have been very effective in using the spotlight on the moratorium to draw attention to the proposed stamp data center. We got a ton of press coverage, and a lot of people, including our legislators, have learned about our fight. And this bill is not a magic bullet to stop data centers in the state or at stamp, and here's why. Kathy Hochul hasn't yet signed this bill. It will not go into effect until and unless she does. While we are cautiously optimistic that she will sign, we can't say for sure that she will until her name is actually on it. She may also delay signing until the end of the year. And 2, we're not sure that the moratorium will apply to the proposed stamp data center for a couple of reasons. It depends on the timing of when the moratorium actually goes into effect, if it goes into effect, and when the approvals are granted at stamp, if approvals are granted. Also, there's nothing on the final text to prohibit local jurisdictions from granting permits or approvals to data centers. Instead, the prohibition on issuing permits and approvals to data centers applies to the Department of Environmental Conservation only. The bill imposes new requirements on the DEC the Public Service Commission and other agencies, but does not prohibit issuance of permits or approvals by those agencies or by local jurisdictions. Currently, Stream is doing everything it can to get out of having to apply for any state permits, especially from the DEC. That's why they've removed diesel generators from their site plan, to avoid having to apply for DEC air permits. So we'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, we're going to keep building our movement and taking steps to stop the Stamp Data Center. Want to know more? Join us this Wednesday, June 10th at 6 p.m. for the next installment of Desserts and Data Center discussions at the Richmond Library in Batavia and on Zoom. Link in the comments. And tune in tomorrow to hear about the GCE ridiculous press release in opposition to the moratorium, our response, and what they did at the board meeting last week. You can read the final text of the moratorium at the link in the comments. Thanks. Bye.